This week on Second Take, we uncover the theater, the reunions, and the ironies of African politics. In Dubai, Mnangagwa faces Tucker Carlson defending land reform and sovereignty with the calm of a man who has outlasted his own coups, critics, and accountability. In South Africa, Julius Malema offers a red carpet to Ndlozi, signaling a reunion that could reshape the EFF while drawing a firm line against opportunism. And in the archives, Robert Mugabe makes an unexpected cameo in the Epstein files, highlighting the contradictions of liberation, power, and global curiosity. Power, personality, and politics collide on Second Take. Welcome to the show. At the World Government Summit in Dubai, a conference where authoritarian leaders cosplay as technocrats, Zimbabwe's president sat comfortably on a panel moderated by Tucker Carlson. Because, nothing says serious governance like explaining land reform to a man who might believe apartheid ended too early. Mnangagwa arrived prepared, calm, smiling, wearing the face of a man who has outlived coups, comrades, and accountability. Have a look.
Contrast your experience with China versus the Western powers. Do you think that Zimbabwe and other African countries, to be totally blunt, get a better deal from Chinese investment than they have with Western powers over the past 150 years?
Zimbabwe is a sovereign state.
Yes.
You understand? And we move on the basis that give us the best results of our resources. Whether it is relation with the West or the East, what is primarily important is what we ourselves as Zimbabweans are satisfied with. We don't need to please the West or please the East. We please ourselves.
Good. That seems like a good model for every sovereign country. I wonder what lessons you've been in the government of Zimbabwe for decades in various roles, including through a very turbulent period where your predecessor famously kicked out the whites and then the economy tanked and now it's rising again. I wonder if you would summarize the lessons that your country has learned from that experience.
I'm not so sure what you have in mind. But let me say, our economy has faced challenges. I'm sure you're aware.
Yes.
Zimbabwe has been under sanctions for decades as a result of us claiming our land from the British and making ourselves independent. We seized the land and gave it to our people. So sanctions were imposed on us. But in spite of all that constraint we have developed, and we are happy that we have developed on our own, and we feel very independent.
Well, people had their land seized in Zimbabwe who were born in Zimbabwe, and they were targeted on the basis of their race, and I wonder if you think that's good or bad.
No. Land did not belong to a race. It belonged to Zimbabweans. Right. So when the colonialists took land from us, time came when we asserted ourselves, take back our land. And those who wanted to have land at the same basis as the African people of Zimbabwe remained. But those who felt they were superior left.
What did you think of what happened in Venezuela last month?
Venezuela is very far away from Zimbabwe.
Yes, it is. Yes, sir. But I wonder, I still wonder as a head of state, a longtime head of state, what you thought of that. I mean, you must pay attention to what happens to other heads of state.
Yeah, but I don't know what we really read in Zimbabwe actually happens in Venezuela, but from what we read, we are interested to know why it is happening.
But President B, what did you think?
I was stunned, and I'm still stunned. It was so surreal that I still have to understand whether the world order, the rules-based society, is still existing, and if not, what becomes of the world? That's why I earlier described the state as we are in a state of flux, because everything that we have understood as the basis for international order is fragmenting or being destroyed right in our face.
I'm sorry, it felt like an unfair question, but that's exactly more to the point. What I'm asking is this a sign of a changing order? And I will end with you, President Boko. What was your response to it?
Well, I think we are seeing a world where rules seem to matter very little, and they matter only depending on who is benefiting from them and who is wielding the stick at any given point in time.
So, Carlson, playing his assigned role, referenced Mugabe's land reforms as the moment Zimbabwe kicked out the whites and collapsed economically. It was a summary designed for applause, not accuracy. Mnangagwa responded like a man who has rehearsed this answer in every mirror of power. He explained that land was stolen from black Zimbabweans during colonialism, that reform was about reclamation, not revenge, that land belongs to Zimbabweans, not whites, not blacks, just Zimbabweans. The audience applauded because nothing reassures global elites like a dictator who speaks fluent moral geometry. Mnangagwa blamed Zimbabwe's economic struggles on Western sanctions, not policy failures. He spoke of sovereignty with the confidence of a man who has been in power long enough to forget it was ever borrowed. When Venezuela was raised, he dismissed it entirely. Venezuela is very far away from Zimbabwe, he said, which was less an argument than a geographical shrug. Geography apparently is now an economic strategy. Then came the line that went viral. Zimbabwe does not need to please the East or the West. Zimbabwe pleases itself. This is the part where satire must intervene, because Zimbabwe does not please itself. Zimbabwe pleases power, and power in Mnangagwa's case looks suspiciously like the same liberation-era machinery, now older, wealthier, and allergic to term limits. Dubai loved him. Social media clipped. Supporters hailed his composure. Critics accused him of historical revisionism. What Mnangagwa actually performed was something more subtle: post-liberation authoritarian confidence. The ability to speak the language of sovereignty while governing like accountability is a foreign import. He invoked Mugabe without inheriting his fury. He defended land reform without addressing corruption. He spoke of independence while sitting comfortably inside a global forum more or less designed to sanitize strongmen. Mnangagwa is not Mugabe. He is Mugabe after finishing a leadership retreat at Victoria Falls, and the world, predictably, applauded. Next, we talk Juju, Julius Malema. So, while Zimbabwe performed continuity, South Africa flirted with return. See, on Thursday, Julius Juju Baby Malema made a statement that sounded simple but landed heavy. If Ndlozi returned to the EFF, Malema said he would roll out a red carpet. Not a handshake, not a statement, a red carpet. This wasn't weakness. It was confidence. Ndlozi is not just another former MP. He is the EFF's intellectual spine, a communicator who gave the movement credibility beyond chance. His departure in 2025 followed internal turbulence after Floyd Shivambu's exit to the MK party, a moment that forced the EFF to clarify loyalty, discipline, and direction. Ndlozi did not burn the house down. He did not defect publicly. He left quietly, citing academia, while absorbing accusations he rarely answered. Malema noticed. In praising Ndlozi's discipline, Malema was also making something else clear. There is no red carpet for Shivambu, no reward for loud exits, no nostalgia for political opportunism disguised as principle. Here is Malema on SABC.
If Mbuyiseni Ndlozi was to come to the EFF tomorrow, I will put a red carpet for him. Because, yes, he's one of the few who conducted himself in a very different manner. Because I know for a fact that once they leave the EFF, they start behaving like they are potential patients of mental hospital.
So the doors open for Mbuyiseni, Floyd?
No. Mbuyiseni never took a T-shirt of another political party. So the constitution of the EFF is clear. Once you leave the EFF and put on a T-shirt of another political party, you cannot come back because the EFF is not wholly in, where you do check in, check out.
All right.
But Mbuyiseni didn't check out and go into another political party. He said, I'm taking a break, let me make a reflections and decide on my way forward without being emotional. Of course, he has been engaging in the discourse, but he has never degenerated.
Let's run.
My second take is that Ndlozi's return would not be a rescue mission. It would be a reunion of minds, a recalibration, not a retreat. And the most interesting part, Ndlozi has not rushed to answer, because power, when confident, does not beg, and reconciliation, when serious, does not perform. If Ndlozi returns, it will signal that the EFF understands something many parties forget, that movements survive not by purging thinkers, but by remembering why they mattered. And if it does not, the invitation alone already changed the conversation, because in African politics, where exits are usually permanent and grudges generational, the idea of return itself is radical. And we are going to be talking about someone who can't return, but his name has returned to the internet. Robert Mugabe in the Epstein files? Robert Mugabe has been dead for years now. Some Zimbabweans will say, thank goodness to that statement. But this normally grants a politician one of two fates, sainthood or silence. But history, being petty, has decided Mugabe deserves a third option, a cameo in the Epstein files. Not a charge, not a scandal, just a mention. And somehow, that feels worse. As the United States Department of Justice continued its slow, almost ritualistic release of documents linked to Jeffrey Epstein, readers discovered an email from 2015. In it, Epstein proposed approaching Mugabe, then still president, to help introduce a new currency for Zimbabwe during its hyperinflation crisis. Epstein described Zimbabwe as a great petri dish for money, which is remarkable, because Mugabe has spent half a century explaining that Zimbabwe's primary problem was being treated exactly like that, a place where foreign interests arrived with ideas, experiments, and exit plans. Epstein added that Zimbabwe was supposed to be beautiful, which is the kind of sentence people use when they are very far away from the consequences of their curiosity. Now, to be absolutely clear, and we will say this slowly for the lawyers, being named in these files does not imply wrongdoing by Mugabe. Epstein himself said he was not friends with Mugabe. He merely believed he could get his attention. which is a very imperial sentence. It assumes that African presidents, especially inconvenient ones, are not unreachable, just unbothered until properly tempted. That power, even revolutionary power, can always be interrupted by the right proposal framed in the right accent, carrying the right numbers. Another document, this time an unverified FBI memo from 2017, alleged, without evidence, that Epstein may have acted as a wealth manager for high-profile figures, including Mugabe. Again, unproven, unattributed, speculative. But Second Take does not wait for court verdicts, we wait for irony. Because Mugabe's entire political identity was built on rejecting the worldview Epstein embodied. Mugabe was anti-imperialism in human form. He spoke of sovereignty like a religion. He framed Zimbabwe as a nation wounded by Western arrogance, stripped by colonial economics, humiliated by financial systems designed elsewhere. And yet, here's Epstein, the patron saint of elite entitlement, looking at Zimbabwe's economic collapse and thinking not how tragic, but how interesting. A petri dish. This is the cruel joke history plays on liberation icons. It does not ask whether they are guilty, it asks whether the systems they fought ever really left. Mugabe railed against exploitation, but exploitation simply changed tone, sharpened its PowerPoint, and started calling itself innovation. Social media predictably lost its mind. Some saw hypocrisy, others saw Western propaganda recycling the dead. Many saw confirmation of a suspicion Africans have long carried quietly, that even the loudest anti-imperialists still govern inside a global system that does not care about ideology, only access.
If you ever feel bad for being mean, I want you to remember Kenyan politician Babu Weno, who got up in front of Parliament and said this.
Can you just shut up?
If you ever feel bad for telling people to be quiet using big words, I want you to remember the Parliament in Botswana.
It's a cacophony of jabberings at that corner. Please come to silence.
If you ever feel bad for fighting with men for talking over you, I want you to remember Kenyan politician Millie Odhiambo said this.
Yes. But Mr. Speaker, don't even worry, I can handle him. I'm capable in all manner to handle him.
Ever feel bad for being too humble? I want you to remember Kenyan politician Babu Weno said this in Parliament.
Die be found dead by the roadside. Madam Speaker, you don't need to go and do a diagnosis. Do a postmortem for the cause of the death. There are only 3 possibilities. Possibility number 1, humility. Madam Speaker, I fear I'm too humble for this life.
Ever feel bad for sleeping at work? I want you to remember Nigerian President Tinubu sleeping on television.
I did it well and proud in Lagos. 600 million naira a month internally generated revenue. Today 50 billion naira every month. I'm making it the 5th largest economy. A creative mind is a fertile land for growth.
Oh no! Oh no!
You know, I recall there was a very famous British politician who said, you know, to be attacked by, say, Geoffrey Howe in Parliament, it's like being attacked by a dead sheep. I feel like that with Honorable Shivambu. That no substance, but sloganeering of the lowest common multiplier. Which is, you know, just difference between the lowest common denominator and the lowest common multiplier. This one multiplies in large amounts of nothing. So I think we should be careful about that. But on that note, You know, it's like if I'm going to lecture a heart surgeon how to operate. So be careful about that. Interact, talk together, yes. But I can't lecture a heart surgeon what to do. What do I know about operating people? But I can explain, yes, I have a heart problem here, let's do it like that and so.
Corruption is not bad. Corruption is only bad if I'm not involved.
Yes.
But if I'm part of that corruption, I'll defend it.
Kenyans will be even in a deeper shit. Oh, no, that is not parliamentary. I'm sorry. Parliament will be in a deeper hole. That hole, that big hole, that you...
My grandfather is Sempa. I'm from the Nchima clan. In my clan, if we find you introducing a man to another man, Mama!
What is your gender? My gender? I'm a mechanic.
Mr. Should I call you Mr.? Pepe Julian Onzima, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for
Good morning.
Morning to you.
Why are you gay?
Who says I'm gay?
You are gay. You are a transgender.
What shows that I'm gay?
You are a transgender, yes, and you're a gay rights activist and an outspoken lesbian.
Also at the World Governance Summit was the president of Botswana, Duma Boko, and the president of Ghana, John Mahama, whose words landed them in our segment, Heartwarming Moment of the Week. Enjoy.
Generally, is a very young continent with a median age of 19.3. Botswana's median age is 25. And so with such a population, Africa is poised to rule the world.
So, what are your plans for the world once you rule it?
To make it fairer, to make it more equitable, to ensure that intellectual property is internalized in every part of the African continent, that innovation serves humanity, not just a predatory elite, and that everybody can partake equitably and benefit from the fruits of the economy and the vast opportunities that are available in the world.
Today, however, humanity faces challenges that transcend borders. These challenges demand cooperation, not as a matter of choice, but as an imperative. The alliances of the future must therefore be rooted in shared responsibility and based on our common destiny as a globe. The partnerships and alliances of tomorrow must extend beyond traditional diplomacy. They must become alliances of solidarity that are anchored in mutual respect, shared aspirations, and collective advancement.
And so, before history gets too poetic, it helps to say this plainly. Robert Mugabe was not just a liberation icon trapped in irony. He was also a dictator, methodical, suspicious, and increasingly self-serving. His rule hollowed out institutions, normalized patronage, and blurred the line between state power and personal survival. Corruption flourished not as an accident, but as a lubricant for loyalty. Elections became rituals, dissent became treason, and the revolution slowly turned inward, feeding itself. That Mugabe now appears in the Epstein files is not a tragedy of misunderstanding. It is a reminder. Authoritarianism does not collapse under ideology, it rots under indulgence. And liberation, when left unchecked, learns to exploit the very people it once promised to free. So, there is no verified confirmation that Epstein managed Mugabe's wealth, but there are many examples of how Mugabe mismanaged Zimbabwe's resources and talents. One of them is a Zimbabwean in the diaspora, denied the chance to live out his dreams at home, now giving the world a second take. Good night.